See what happens?
Rineer, Donetta, age 87 of Centerville, Ohio, passed away on Monday, December 15th, 2025. She was born to Mary Margaret Hilton and Donovan in Martins Ferry, Ohio, on November 25th, 1938. Donetta attended Southwood Christian Church, where she was active in various ministries. She was a loving and devoted wife, mother, and grandmother who spent much of her time volunteering in the community, including visiting her house and her church. Donetta lived a life of faithfulness and steadfast love for Christ. She will be missed dearly by all who knew and loved her. Preceded in death by her parents, brother Bert Jenkins, and daughter-in-law Amy Spears Wilson. Donetta is survived by her husband, Donald Rineer, children, Karen, Michael Ewell, Carol Evans, David Wilson, Linda, Dave Little. Grandchildren, Carl, Callie, Ewell, Caleb, Sarah Ewell, Claire, Brian Ewell, Tara Gelhaus, and Andrew Rachel Evans. Great-grandchildren, Kate Carter Jackson, Madeline, Daniel, Jacob, Joseph, and Charlie. Stepchildren, Donald, Maria, Rineer, and Denise, Dawn, Rineer. And stepchildren, Jacob, Abby, and Alyssa, and numerous extended family members and friends. The visitation will be held from 10 a.m. to 12 on Tuesday, January 6th, 2026, at Southwood Christian Church. A memorial service will follow as well. A private interment will be held at Centerville, Washington Township Cemetery. It's an honor for me to be here with you today because being one of the pastors here gave me the opportunity to know Donetta for over 15 years. And she was always kind to me with just a little bit of sassiness. From my early 20s to the last time I saw her, she would say things to me like, hey, you keep doing what you're doing. Occasionally, she would tell me that the music was too loud, or that we should do a song, all while making a facial expression, teasing me, knowing that that would never happen. That being said, Donetta, she didn't like to miss church, not just because it was a habit, but because, and I know this from experience, if you watching her with so many people, she had a meaningful community. And while she was struggling with her lungs in the year past, prevent her from coming as often as she would like. I recall one time seeing her with a walker as assistance. She was moving pretty well, so I thought, well, I'm going to go encourage Donetta. I told her she seemed like she was moving pretty quick. And she shot back, well, I'm not exactly buying rings and nails anymore. If you knew Donetta, you could almost hear those words from her voice. She was sassy, but she was tender. She was a kindred spirit to me, and for so many more of you. Well, on behalf of the family, I want to thank you for being here. And at this time, Donetta's beloved granddaughter, beloved daughter, would say a few words in her memory.
Thank you all for being here. For those of you that don't know, my name is Claire Ewald, and Donetta's youngest granddaughter. And it's my honor to share on behalf of her children, her grand, and even her great-grandchildren, some of our thoughts, our memories, and really just to celebrate the life of Donetta May, known to many of us as simply Graham. And it feels right to call her that, because Graham was never just a title. was a role that she lived fully, generously, and faithfully every single day of her life. Graham was the definition of dedication. Her children remember her as the mom who was always there at every game, every concert, every practice, every recital. She didn't just show up, she showed up prepared. She was a Girl Scout leader more than once, and the cookie mom, meaning during cookie season, if you went into the basement, you'd likely find hundreds of boxes of Girl Scout cookies stacked up for troops all over the area. She coached middle school softball, which, if you know Graham and her enthusiasm for many sports, softball is a bit of a stretch for her. She gave rides home from practices and games, and somehow still managed to make sure there was a home cooked meal at the table, packed lunch for the next day, and all while helping with homework. This didn't just apply to her children, but also friends. Her home was a safe place to land, a place where you were welcomed, fed, listened to, and loved, no questions asked. Well, she'd have a lot of questions for you, but I promise they're all in will. She grew up with very little, yet she was endlessly generous. She never wanted her loved ones to want for anything, and that generosity went far beyond material items. She was generous with her time, her attention, and her love. Graham filled her home with music. Dancing, and movies. Through them, she showed us the beauty in each and how much they could bring to our lives. She taught us that music can be a soundtrack to a heartbreak, a beat for a celebration, and a comfort in times of pain. That dancing can be an expression of joy and freedom, and then movies can open up worlds and possibilities we may have never dreamed of before. She invited us in to imagine, to hope, and to see life from new perspectives. She traveled near and far for her kids, grade corps competitions, Wisconsin to Virginia, dance performances, lessons, and milestones of every kind. And she carried that same energy and that same commitment right into being a grandmother and even a great-grandmother. Graham never missed a chance to cheer from the stands, whether it be baseball, soccer, tennis, dance recitals, whatever mattered to her family, they mattered to her. She even had the joy of doing that for her great-grandkids. She showed up in quieter but equally meaningful ways as well. She traveled for doctor's appointments and surgeries, never forgot a birthday, and more often than not, she made sure she was the very first card you ever received. Christmas was no different. Graham never waited until the last minute. In fact, if you knew her, you knew that by October, her Christmas shopping was already done, so don't even dream about adding to the list. That was Graham. She was thoughtful, prepared, and always thinking ahead so the people she loved felt remembered and cared for. Her devotion to family was guided by something even deeper, her love for the Lord and her heart for serving others. Her faith wasn't something she just spoke about, it was something she lived. It showed in the way that she cared, the way she encouraged, and the way she remained steady and compassionate through every season of life. When so much was changing around us, Graham was a constant. She was home. Graham's favorite scripture was Psalm 42. It states, "He lifted me out of the slimy pit, out of the mud and the mire. He set my feet on a rock, and gave me a firm place to stand." That verse feels like a reflection of how Graham lived her life. She offered a firm place to stand to others, she lifted people up when they needed it most, and through her faith and her love, she helped so many feel steady, supported, and never alone. There's a saying that we often forget, that our parents and even grandparents are living life for the first time right alongside of us. I was fortunate enough to share some of those first with Graham, to see her take in the beauty of being present, of sharing memories with the people she loved most, and never living with regrets. One of my favorite memories happened a few years ago, when at the ripe age of 80, Graham packed up and joined me in Chicago for a Billy Joel concert at Wrigley Field. When we arrived, I wanted to make sure we were settled so there wouldn't be too much back and forth from our seats. So we walked up to the concession stand, I ordered 2 glasses of wine and of course the popcorn. As I was ordering, Graham grabbed my arm with urgency and flashed a sly smile, pointed to the couple next to us, who was holding a carafe of wine, and whispered, "I think we better do that." And we did. We danced, we sang, and we soaked in the joy of that night together. Seeing Graham in that moment, I also heard her crying. So full of joy, so so free, so alive, is something I'll treasure forever. Though Graham never wanted us to live with regrets, I'd be lying if I said my Sundays don't feel a little emptier without our weekly calls, or I don't still need a reminder to change the clocks, even though I haven't owned an analog clock in about a decade. As we step into the new year, it strikes me that, like many of us, this year will bring many firsts. First holidays and birthdays without her. But selfishness is the first year she won't be living this life alongside me. Graham's life is built on love. Love for her family, love for her faith, and love for serving others. She taught us what it means to be present, what it means to show up, and what it means to care deeply and give generously. Graham, thank you for being our constant. Thank you for being our safe place, our example, and our home. Though we don't miss you deeply, your love will continue to guide us, steady us, and give us a firm place to stand.
Well, maybe the first part, it didn't fall down. Before you started, verse 2 says, thank the Lord Jesus Christ for the 21 years he gave us together. It's almost like the second part of my life. And I think Lord knew what he was doing when he put us together. We had a lot of things in common. He developed a lot of other common interests after we were married. I first came to Southfield in about this time here in 2001. And then I had already been here for at least 4 or 5 years. And my first recollection of her was that every time I was visiting church there, she seemed to be there. Well, I wish that I wanted to get maybe in the church, I wanted to get started and join the singles group. It was us to join the fifth team, which in those days was first progression team, which is now guest services. So we served together, and for a couple of months we kind of got to know each other pretty well. And so we never really dated or anything. What we did is the singles group, a lot of times was to do group activities, which made it very comfortable to go out and be with people and not have any type of commitment or anything. But one night when we went to the Phrase Pavilion, we went out there, something they called I think it's called the Kisses Day. It's where one of the restaurateurs in the area brought sample foods and you taste them and just cut down on a good idea. Well, I had enjoyed a restaurant and she had regular, I think her best friend, and they talked about, we was talking about a restaurant called Z's on the phone. And she said, well, she wasn't ever going to go because her ride was given. And I overheard a conversation and I just said, well, I'm invited myself. I don't mind taking it. If you go over there, and I'll run you home. And that was really the first time I was able to get together and had more than a 5 or 10 minute conversation. But I really liked her. And he went to several of those activities together and continued to do so. And following the fall that year, he decided I was going to ask her to go someplace again, so to speak, but I'm not so sure looked at it that way. I asked him to go to a UD basketball game. And I'm still getting to UD basketball game. 21 years. But she said no. And I little taken back by that, that's wrong. She doesn't like basketball. Because like basketball, she doesn't like me. So anyway, I went home and later on, she was talking to her best friends, said, I had asked her to go to this game, and she said, well, did you want to go on with that? And she said, well, yeah, I think I'd be interested in going on this time, but I'm not sure about the basketball part of it. She says, well, you don't want to lose your chance, you don't know what he's going to ask you, you got to call him back and tell him you want to go to that game. And I'm not so sure she looked right, but it was interesting. Until last year, after 20 years of youth basketball, she learned to love him as much as I did. And we enjoyed our time together there. And until like a year and a half ago, oxygen, portable oxygen, she had hooked another on with it. It was getting to be kind of a burden. It was hard for her to get up and down the steps to get rid of it. So she had to stop going to the game. So I'm going to grab it a little bit here because I had two pages of notes, of which one has disappeared. So, if somebody found a piggy. So anyway, we started dating after that, and all really well. Continued to serve for many ministries at Southwood, especially her. And the first place I remember her serving was in the music ministry with John Wilstead in State. At that time, before technology set in, they used to pull the music for the upcoming weekends on sheet music. They would enjoy it, they would listen to God, and go back there in the station for all sheet music up for just the instruments for the Lord. So, we both continued one with the 15th and became coaches in one for Saturday night team for a long time. And when I asked her to marry me, we decided to wait until August of the next year. So we were actually married on August the 30th, 2002. And during this time, we had been introduced to a style of music that became a big part of our life, and it was Southern gospel. And we went to many concerts, many years. And we actually decided to do our honeymoon on a long weekend because we were still working at the time. In Gatlinburg, which is one of our places that we really like to go, and we came back more so when we were together. But on our way down, we left after the reception, we were driving, and we probably got into Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg around 8 o'clock at night. And we were headed into Gatlinburg, headed for the bed and breakfast. And we turned on our gospel station out of Knoxville, because we both like to listen to gospel music. And as we came up on the bed and breakfast, the song by Bill Boy Baker came on called Something Good Is About to Happen. And we looked at each other, and we started laughing, and we could not stop laughing. But it was just incredible. It was like they say God doesn't have a sense of humor. When we play a song, but something great is about to happen. We were going on and it got us started. And our life was still a great team, a great time together. Some of the things that we were introduced to became staples in our vacation life over the years, and many of them were cruises. So to take the 21st vacations we took was we decided to go to Disney World, and both of us had been with our kids when we were younger, and we both thought, you know, it would be great to go back to Disney World and see all the things we never saw because our kids didn't want to go. So we did. And at that time, I asked her if she'd ever been on a cruise. And she said, no, they were kind of surprised me. I said, well, you know what, part of this business strategy you're looking at, you can tailor it to the camp cover in a different state, how the cruise in the Bahamas. You know, if you'd like to try that, it would just be a short cruise, so if you didn't really like it, it wouldn't be too long. So we took it. Well, she was hooked. And not only did we love the cruise, we found a form of cruising that it was absolutely amazing because it combined not only cruising, but also they were Gaither homecoming cruises that brought all the entertainment on the ship with all the artists that we love to go to here at the concert. And it turned out to be terrific vacations for us. I mean, it was just to go and intermix with many of those artists and see all the things you see on the river cruise, you have all the entertainment. And during the day, when you didn't have an excursion plan, they used to have little mini concerts. So we did all of them. We really liked those. Over the years, we took 9 of those cruises, twice to Alaska, once to Hawaii, twice to the Caribbean, twice to New England, and St. Louis Seaway and Quebec City. And for a long time, it was one of the things that we both really enjoyed doing. We skipped several others as well, but not as much of the cruises that we did to the Canadian trip across the Canadian Rockies, which was really enjoyable. But one of the things about Donetta, just mentioning things that we love to do so much, was how impressed I always was with her and the way she liked to serve. I briefly mentioned her experience with the music industry and all the music, but also serving on a fit team. But we also, she especially served in a ministry called Choosing Wisely, which is the divorce prevention ministry, which we ended up in the long run doing together for about 8 or 9 years. She was on the Calvin team for many years before push day, and actually had to count some money. And she got into, in those days, the ministry that was started by Dale was in the Holy Camp. I don't know if they're still here or not. But it was one they kind of started into where they were taking a lot of clothes that sit on these secondhand clothing stores. And Dale was asking some questions about it. They were trying to get rid of the clothing. So Dale said, "Oh, our church would call these." They said he agreed to start taking them. So it became a big deal. And all of a sudden, we were all absolutely overwhelmed that they had ruined the church. They ran out of room to store it in church. And we started storing all those clothes in basements. And finally, looked and so overwhelming, and she was working so hard with Dale and Linda and other people as well. When I told you that, they finally ran into a place called a Good Neighbor House downtown, and they agreed to take over and just pick up the clothing. So because of that, she got involved with the Neighbor House. She was with them for many years, serving in different capacities down there. She was also involved with Bob when they started the food ministry here, and them the Holy Ghost women served with that as well. She also served with an organization in Miami here called Thread, which is another clothing ministry. So needless to say, she was very busy. She worked at Welcome County. Just about everything turned around, no matter what I did, she was involved in something with South Brook. It was a huge part of both of our lives from the very beginning of our marriage. And to this day, still is. So, the other thing she really loved was Bible study. And back in those days, we had a new Bible study. It's not like it's one we both got involved in. She was involved in the women's Bible study here for many years. She went to BSF, which is Bible Study Fellowship. I'm not familiar with it. It's a national organization that teaches an intense study on different books of the Bible, and it lasts for a whole year, so it's a real intense study. They only do like 4 or 5 different books, they repeat them. And she took every one of them, wrote them all, and we're going to go back and fix them over again. But they kind of had a rule that you had to get on a waiting list to make sure that they're not done all of them books to the Bible, and they teach had an opportunity, but she eventually got around doing several of those over and over again. And in the off time, she babysit for people who wanted to get back into this stuff. They were volunteering to watch babies while they were babysit while the other people went to the Bible study. She was also an original member of WOW, what me and most of you guys like to call it was the wild old women. Now, especially women of the wisdom. And that's the organization she was the original member of. And God went for a little while, and in the last several years, she got back into it and was really enjoying that again. So that's kind of a wrap up of our life here at Southwood, and our life together. And it was a real blessing. Our families too came from broken homes, and this was the second chance situation for both of us. And you know, I know that when my family was racially, she always felt comfortable around them, and I felt the same way around her. We always spend together every time of the day, and I was never made to feel uncomfortable in their family environment. Level two. So that's about all I have to say. So, thank you very much. I'll see you again all day. I'm really not this good. I haven't worn regular shoes, so
The families asked that we set aside some time for your friends or family. In addition, we want to stand up and say a few remarks. We do ask that you keep it to just a couple minutes because the preacher is pretty long-winded. But you make your way up to the podium and cherish that.
David, son of Donetta, there was so much of a loss, but it really struck me most on this past Saturday, where I really sunk in, and I started crying over there when some things were being said. The first speaker, and I'm so grateful for what I've been given with my mother, and she gave everything to me. She gave everything to my sisters, and I'm so grateful. And that's all I have.
Hi, my name is Callie. I'm Carl's wife, Donna's grandson. And one thing that I think of when I think of Donna is just how gracious she was with her time. And that's something that I really struggle with. But it carries through her family. You see it in Karen and then Karen, David. And just how much joy they get out of spending time with you. I mean, she came to visit my kids for their birthdays in the home in Chicago. There was no expectation. And my family's all over the place. I never see my cousins or uncles or aunts, and so it really struck me with Carl's family just how selfless they are with their time. So that was something that I got from Donetta. I certainly get from my good friend. That I have to continue with my family.
Mrs. Carter, who had his emotions from his grandmother.
My great grandson Carter, and she was really kind to me and my brother. She would always pick us up from school and take us home. The first thing she would do is give us chocolate pudding and candy. And she would teach us how to make chocolate milk with regular milk and chocolate syrup, and that's what we would do. Every once in a while, since I was like 7 years old, but that was part of my core memories.
My name is Melissa, and I cleaned the Donetta. I loved her. She was such an amazing woman. She was so warm and friendly and down low to me. She had such a love for her family. She was gracious and kind, and she will be greatly missed.
I want to stand right here, and about 25 years ago, I saw Donetta. I had known Donetta, and I saw her at Kroger's. She was very excited. She was getting a video movie, and a friend was coming over, and that's the first time I heard about that, and how excited she was. From that moment on until this moment, that she loved me very much. just want to let somebody know that was my experience many, many years ago with Donetta. And I love her, obviously, herself. She's a lovely, lovely lady.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing. I've done, there's two kinds of people that I've done funeral services for. Those that are easy to celebrate, and those that you have to look really hard at their lives to find things to celebrate. Of course, I never say that at people's funerals. Hard to celebrate, so it's a good indicator of the kind of person Donetta was. Some people live their daily lives as if they know what matters in the end. Some people, they live for resume, credentials, and what they desire in the moment. But in the end, we really know what matters. And Jesus says that there is not only this life. Which do we celebrate? We celebrate winning or serving, achievement or character, what we clung to or what we gave away, what we fought for or what we fought for on behalf of someone else. No one ever cries at a funeral service for Joe Schmo, who made every story about himself, who never used to turn signal, who never gave a dime to charity, and was always thinking about himself. And what we celebrate is selflessness. That is the highest value of life. How much was given away? That's the way of the cross. If you read the Gospels, you realize that Jesus, he never leveraged his divine power for himself. It wasn't like he walked into a restaurant and said, hey, I really would like that table over there. Either you can move them or I will. He never played the God card. He didn't leverage his power for his own benefit. Yet he leveraged it for everyone else's. The first will be last. I have not come to be served, but to serve. And whoever wants to find their life must give it away. For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but for those who are being saved, it is the power of God. The message of the cross is the power of God. It is the power of making oneself low, because Jesus didn't give himself to humanity so that everyone who believed in him could become entitled. He said, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, and pray for those who mistreat you. Someone who is willing to live like this, they're elevating relationship above all the other values of the world. What does that look like in modern life? Well, when there's conflict and they say, well, I got there first, but really you did. You say, does it really matter? And you give it away. Or it was my idea before it was your idea. But choosing humility is the way of the cross, because that's what Jesus did for us. It says that he was stripped of all his dignity. He came off his love. Essentially, it's how can I lose in this moment to serve someone else? How can I give up my time to be there for a friend or a family member? How can I give up thinking about myself instead and be thoughtful for others? Here's what I want you to know. A person cannot merely just become selfless by saying, well, I'm going to become selfless and do it all on their own will. They have to do something more. They have to dwell on a deeper power. Now, I couldn't make the case that any of us are capable of doing this perfectly. We only know one person who actually achieved this. But his followers, the followers of Jesus, can draw on a value system that empowers a person to transcend our selfishness. We're gathered here with family and friends who travel near and far for Donetta. There's lifelong friendships, family members who cherish her, and they know that she lived, you just heard, with an elevated value of what really matters. And all the things about Donetta that we're talking about. What gave Donetta the capacity to be so friendly, kind, and selfless And from what I can tell, she didn't just like manufacture the capacity to treat all of her friends and her family as well as she did on her own. In John 15, Jesus says, "My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for a friend." But who would be willing to do this? Who would take Jesus' advice and actually believe that to be true? But God demonstrates his own love for us in this, yet while we're still sinners, he died for us. Every now on occasional times that I get to participate in a service of officiating like this, I'll read one of the greatest stories that I have ever heard about selflessness. And you may have even heard me say it, but what do we do with the greatest hits? We play them over and over and over, and I think that in Donetta's life, there's a connection here. And the story goes, one day when I was a freshman in high school, I saw a kid from my class was walking home, and his name was Kyle, and looked like he was carrying all of his books. I thought to myself, why would anyone bring home all of their books on a Friday? What a nerd. I had quite a weekend planned. I had parties and a football game with my friend tomorrow afternoon, so I shrugged my shoulders and went on. And as I was walking, I saw a bunch of kids running toward him, and as they ran at him, they knocked him to the ground. His books were flying out of his arms. He tripped, and his glasses flung about 10 feet to the grass in front of him. And he looked up, and I saw this terrible sadness in his eyes. So I jogged over to him, and as he was crawling around looking for his glasses, I saw this tear in his eye. I handed him his glasses and said, "Those guys are jerks." He looked at me and he said, "Hey, thanks," with a big smile on his face. So I helped him pick up his books. I asked him where he lived, and as it turned out, he lived near me, so I asked him why I had never seen him before, and he just told me that he had gone to private school up until now. We talked all the way home, and I carried his books, and he turned out to be a pretty cool kid. So I asked him if he wanted to play football on Saturday with me and my friends, and he said, yeah. And we hung out all weekend. The more that I got to know Kyle, the more that I liked him. And my friends thought the same. Monday came, and there was Kyle again with this huge stack of books. I stopped him and I said, "Thanks, son, you're going to build some serious muscles with this pile of books every day." And he just laughed and handed me half the books. Over the next 4 years, Kyle and I became best friends. And when we were seniors, Kyle decided on Georgetown, but I was going to Duke. Somehow I knew that we'd always be friends, even though we were going to different colleges. Miles wouldn't be a problem. So Kyle was valedictorian of our class, and I had to prepare us, and he had to prepare us for graduation. And I was so glad it wasn't me. Graduation day, I saw Kyle, and he looked great, like one of those guys who really grew into himself, and all the girls loved him. I could see he was really nervous about his speech, so I smacked him on his back. I said, "Hey, kid, Kyle, you're going to be great." And he looked at me with one of those really genuine, grateful smiles. He said, "Hey, thanks." As he started his speech, he cleared his throat and began, "Graduation is a time to thank those who helped you make it through those tough years. Your parents, your teachers, your siblings, maybe a coach, but mostly your friends. I'm here to tell all of you that being a friend to someone is the best gift that you can give them." Kyle went on and said, "Now I'm going to tell you a story." And I looked at my friend with disbelief as he told the story of the first day we met. He had planned to kill himself over the weekend. He talked about how he cleaned out his locker so his mom wouldn't have to do it later. And he had a hard look at me. And he said, "Thankfully I was there. My friend saved me from doing the unspeakable." And I heard the gasp go out through the crowd as this handsome, popular boy told us all about his weakest moments. And I saw his mom and dad look over at me and smile with that same grateful smile. Not until then did I realize it's dead. You know that you and I are Kyle? That we're on our way to death and we're carrying our books home. Jesus picked up our books. The difference is Jesus doesn't do this for us by coincidence. But he does it as a very intentional, selfless act of friendship. And on the cross, Jesus experienced unspeakable pain, the pain that you and I should have experienced, and he took it on himself. He is the only one who can say, I'm a perfect friend. This is what Jesus did for you and what he did for Donetta, and she did it. And so she asked, Levi, when you do my service, will you preach the gospel? On a day about herself, she wants us to talk about someone else. She was such a great friend, and yet she points to an even more dependable connection than you could ask for. And she would ask you to look to the arms that were nailed right over for you. Jesus even did this after his closest friends fell asleep, betrayed him, and denied him. And the Father comes to Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane and he says, hey, look, you either have to go to hell or you have to say goodbye to your friends. And Jesus said, I'll go to hell. That's how much I love them. There's a friend who sticks closer to your brother so that we're not ruined. There's a friend who goes to hell so we're not lost. And if you can buy that friend of Jesus, you will experience the most benevolent friendship you can imagine, which thereby transforms you and empowers you to be the friendship that all, be the friend that all other people in your life need. Because when you know Jesus Christ, and he loves you, no matter what, then I suddenly don't have to live out of the fear of being rejected by others. I am secure because I know that he loves me no matter what. John the disciple, that he refers to himself in writing the gospel, the one whom Jesus loved. Does that sound like a person writing about their deceased friend said, he loved me? He said, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. Because of the great friendship of Jesus Christ on the cross, you and I can participate in that divine relationship with God and others. That there is life after death, and not only that, but there is a life worth celebrating when lived in that way. There's a famous theologian once said that you can aim to have this world, and you might get the world. Or you can aim for heaven and get the world thrown in. And I confidently say to you, from my experience of knowing Donetta, that she aimed for heaven in the way that she befriended and loved so many. So the difference is, when we encounter the cross, do we choose to live our life with our own desires and our privilege, or do we live in the grace of that wonderful cross? And Donetta, she chose a specific song that I think speaks for exactly her posture in that question. I'd rather have Jesus. I'm going to pray and I want you to listen. Father in heaven, we thank you for Donetta. We thank you for all that are gathered here, and even those who couldn't come that wish they could have. What a gift it is to talk about her and to share memories of her. I pray that we will remember today as a day of celebration and of healing, and that we would contend with what the cross invites us into, and we can pick up the cross as Donetta did, or we can deny it You give us the choice. Isn't that true, benevolent, kind friendship? And you can't force a relationship. You say, here's what I have to offer. What do you want to do? And so, God, we thank you for your kindness. That you're the ultimate friend. And that Donetta knew you, so we can know that Donetta that we knew. In Jesus' name, amen.
I'd rather have Jesus than silver or gold. I'd rather be His than have riches untold. I'd rather have Jesus than houses and land. I'd rather be led in His name pierced hands than to be a king of a vast domain and be held in sin's way. I'd rather have Jesus than anything this world affords today. I'd rather have Jesus than worldly applause. I'd rather be faithful to His dear cause. I'd rather have Jesus than worldly fame. I'd rather be true to His holy name than to be a king of a vast domain and be held in sin's way. Yes, I'd rather have Jesus than anything this world affords today. Than to be a king of a vast domain and be held in sin's way. So I'd rather have Jesus than anything that this world affords today.
Thanks, John. Thank you, Doug. 1 Thessalonians 4:13 tells us that you do not grieve like the rest of mankind, yet you grieve with hope. And the writer of those words is really saying two things. One of the key promises from God is that in the end all will be well, so if all is not well, then it is not the end. And also those that are followers of Jesus, even though they're close to God, they are to grieve. You don't just escape grief, but we grieve with hope. Grief is the feeling of pain leaving the body. And hope is the absolute expectation of coming good based on the person of Jesus and His promises of God. And Donetta is already experiencing the glory of God. Her favorite verse, Psalm 40, verse 2. He lifted me out of the slimy pit, out of the mud and mire. He set my feet on a rock and gave me a firm place to stand. The family has asked if you are family or consider yourself family in closing of the service to join them across the hallway in the reception space for a meal, to continue cherishing the memory of Donetta and one another. Personally, I want to thank you for your presence here, as I know how much it means to them.